Happy Friday, and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson, and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us, folks. Jason, I was trying to come up with a snazzy title for today, but we had to sanitize it for social media, especially Facebook and YouTube. But you just kind of want to ask the question, like, what is wrong with people at this point? You want to use a lot of colorful language, like, clearly the honeymoon is over. The media knew the whole time Kamala Harris was a fraud. Now we're just waiting for Democrat voters to realize that as well.
Yeah, I got to say, Todd and I, our spouses sometimes think we overuse the word retard. And I got to say, as I look at people that are voting for Kamala Harris or saying they're going to vote for Kamala Harris, the word retard probably isn't a strong enough word. So let us know in the comments, in the chat, like if you have any other suggestions. We do need something that we can both run on social media pages like Facebook and not, because Todd, I just don't understand. The best comeback I've had, though, is like, hey, so you voted for her in the primary? When somebody brings it up and they're like, no. Well, what do you mean? Like,
were you one of the 1% in 2020 that was on Team Kamala?
Right.
Oh, you weren't? Oh, that's weird.
Right. Yeah, it's just shocking. It's shocking. But I got to say, so let's put this in context. We were talking a year ago they were going to replace Kamala Harris or replace Joe Biden. He was really a vegetable. The polls, the media was all pretending that everything was okay and Joe wasn't losing that badly. They have the debate. They still, for a week or so, said Joe Biden wasn't losing that badly. And then it became clear, they've admitted as much, Joe Biden was getting his butt kicked by President Trump in their internal polls, the polls you and I never get to see. And so then they had to pull the Hail Mary and throw in Kamala. And the first week or two, it was all sunshine, butterflies, and rainbows. And then they go into the DNC. Todd, what recap your thoughts of the DNC?
In one word, terrible. In two words, terrible and gaslighting. They offered no substantive policy stances other than we hate this country and we hate that you have too much freedom, so we're going to steal all that from you. But all they had was Trump. I think we played a clip after the DNC in our recap episode. It was a cut of everyone speaking, and it was Trump, 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 Trump. They are literally running against the idea of Donald Trump being a threat to democracy. When, Jason, as we're going to point out in the show today, there's only one party going after your freedoms. And I don't even want to use the word democracy, because what does that mean to folks? It means something entirely different. This is the one party going after your freedoms as an American. And we got the evidence to back it up today.
Yeah, stay tuned for the second half hour. We're going to go into, grab your conspiracy theory hats, because just in the last week to 10 days, they've confirmed like 4 conspiracy theories. I mean, leading Democrat politicians who are calling you a crazy conspiracy theorist are now just coming out and saying, yeah, that's exactly what we meant. You were right.
The joke during the pandemic, the difference between a conspiracy theory and reality was about 6 months. And so here we are updating the list of former conspiracy theories.
But yeah, so back to Kamala Harris. We were talking when they made the switch. Kamala was going to get more votes than Joe theoretically, because Kamala wasn't a corpse. And the trick is going to be, can they keep Kamala out of the press other than just giving speeches? She's a good orator. If you just saw her up there giving a speech, she's fine. You have her have a conversation with a human being or answer a question, she's a train wreck. And they can only hide her for so long. She's done one interview. It was with CNN. It was Tim Walz there. They aired 18 minutes of like 40 minutes film. Think of that. 18 minutes. It was all they released. And those 18 minutes weren't good. So don't you wonder what's on the cutting room floor?
But Jason, you and I talk for an hour and a half once a week. You and I put together more cogent sentences and thoughtful ideas than the contender for president and vice president of the United States could do in one sit down, here are your questions ahead of time sort of interview.
Right, yeah. And we come on here with talking points and we just shoot from the hip. Sometimes we engage with when somebody has a comment in the chat, and I mean all sorts of different things. But I mean, these guys want to be the leader of the free world, and they can have 17 minutes televised.
Jason, I want to go back to something you said, and then we'll get to our first combo clip here. For everyone that thinks Joe Biden wasn't pushed out or it wasn't the polling, just ask yourself, would they have gotten rid of Joe Biden if his poll numbers were strong against Donald Trump? Would they have unseated the incumbent if they thought he had a chance to win in November? And if you say, well, he was just getting too old, they knew he was old in 2020, and that didn't bother them because they knew they could run him and win against Donald Trump. The only reason Joe Biden is gone, and I think we have to say this a lot, Jason, because there's Democrats out there that still think he did the right thing for the country. He put democracy ahead of his own ego. If Joe Biden had been polling differently, he's still in the race. Joe Biden polling poorly, therefore Joe Biden got pushed out. That's it.
And it's funny because the Democrats knew Joe Biden was cooked. They could have run a primary. They could have let Democrats actually pick the candidate. They didn't. They haven't let the candidates. They haven't let the voters pick the candidate since at least 2016. 2016, Bernie should have been the nominee. They leveraged their super delegates to get rid of Bernie. 2020, Clyburn picked Joe Biden, so that's who they went with. I mean, he was trailing going into the early states. And they just said, nope, we want Joe Biden. And now they said, Joe Biden can't win. We're going to give you Kamala Harris. I hope you like it.
I'm going to put on my mini tinfoil. We never get to the title of the show because we have so many things to say. I'm going to put on a mini tinfoil hat, and then I promise we'll get to our first clip of Kamala. Do you think they were afraid of another white man winning? RFK would have done really well, I think, in the primaries. Gavin Newsom, maybe if he thought he had a chance, might have put his... They couldn't run another white man. And so they said, we have to put Kamala as a black woman in here ourselves because we don't trust the voters to do it themselves. They already showed in 2020 they don't want her. So we have to hand select this black woman, lest we, the party of inclusivity, have another white male on the ticket.
Well, actually, I got to say, I think Kamala presented a problem. Everybody agreed they had to get rid of Joe. And if they ran a primary, there are some Democrats that aren't crazy and aren't owned by the establishment, like RFK Jr. He probably wins the nomination.
Or it's really close and interesting, yeah.
Or it's really close and interesting. I mean, he probably runs Bernie 2016 numbers, but then they wanted to pick the replacement. And I think when they were picking, Democrats are smart enough to know, there's no way to get rid of Kamala. So if you're not going to let the voters vote and you're going to pick who your replacement is going to be, you can't get rid of Kamala. And even if you could, I think a lot of the people they wanted, this should be a landslide victory for conservatives or Republicans in this election.
There's a reason it's Harrison Walls. Any of the big name Democrats saw this as a losing election. They're not going to be a loser in 2024. They're going to wait for 2028 when it's not Trump.
Right. Yeah. I mean, think of all the people who they had 7 or 8 reasonable candidates in 2020. Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar. And I'm not saying any of these are people I like, but they actually had candidates that got some support. They could have picked any one of those, and they picked the governor from the great state of Minnesota. God love them.
I honestly, the best pick possible that Democrats could have made, because somehow, Kamala makes Hillary Clinton look good. Tim Walz makes Kamala look good. He is that bad.
Right. And it's funny because you throw up this goofy white guy who I'm enjoying, all the stuff we knew as Minnesotans for how awful he was and connections to China and his DUI arrest. And I mean, just all of the stuff, what he's done legislatively in Minnesota that's destroyed the state. And when we say destroyed the state, it's not going off the rails today, but 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, we're screwed. He's committed all this money because we had a surplus. And now we're going to have to raise taxes to pay for it. But anyways, they are waking up on on some of these sites. And Shane Brown.
I had to get to Shane's comment. This is a good one. Thanks for watching on Twitter, by the way. That's where we keep an additional half hour of the show running. So watch us on Rumble, watch us on Twitter. But yeah, one of the funniest comments from Dems is Trump's losing it. He needs to take a cognitive test. Oh, Trump's getting old and senile. They say that with zero self-awareness that they voted for and supported a president with actual senility issues. Yeah,
right.
Sometimes there's no words. Jason and I are trying to find words for Democrats. They honestly think Trump has a problem with his brain as they voted and supported Joe Biden. So make that make sense.
Right. And I got to say, Sally, welcome to the show. They have backup plans to get rid of Trump after he elected. Do you ever notice no matter what they do, it fails because God is using Trump? Oh, yeah. Wait till the Rumble only section of the podcast. We're going to talk about Democrats certifying the election or not. We're going to talk about the new Jack Smith case. we're gonna go into some stuff that we just can't share on Facebook or YouTube.
All right, Jason, we're 11 minutes in. Should we get to our Kamala clip?
Let's do it.
All right, let me set this up. This is CNN, folks. This is a CNN host, not even a guest. We'll get to some Vivek guest appearances in a second, but a CNN primetime host decided to fact check Kamala on her border wall flip-flop. And as we talked about, the media honeymoon is over because they're not running this story a month ago, but they are running it today. So let's take a listen to CNN, do a little fact check here.
Tonight, K-File investigates. In a new report, you'll see first out front. The K-File team scoured Kamala Harris's tweets and statements going all the way back to 2017. And what they found was more than 50 instances of Harris slamming Trump's border wall. But now, new Harris campaign ads actually showcase that very wall.
As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border.
And on top of critical tweets, Harris also wrote in her 2019 book, quote, "There was a bigger reason to oppose the border wall. A useless wall on the southern border would be nothing more than a symbol, a monument standing in opposition to not just everything I value, but to the fundamental values upon which this country was built. How could I vote to build what would be little more than a monument designed to send the cold, hard message, keep out?" Well, K-File's Andrew Kaczynski.
Can I just pause and say that's exactly what I want a border wall to say? It says, "You are not welcome here as an illegal immigrant. Keep out."
Right.
That's all I want.
Can I digress for a minute, Todd? I feel that's like, the show is just like our getting stuff off our chest. So we appreciate people tuning in and watching and share the content. So in America, we believe in free speech, low taxes, private ownership, capitalism, all these things. We let people into this country and they're coming from crap hole countries where their form of governance or what they want to do destroys their country. So we say, okay, yeah, that didn't work over here. Come over here. And because we're nice and inclusive and we believe in free speech, we let them in, we let them share these dumb ideas. And then it gets polluted in our country. And they're trying to make our country their crap hole country. And it's the most remarkable thing ever. And it's one of those difficult parts of being a conservative or an American. We want people kept out of this country. We want people to join the country who says, hey, I like capitalism. I want to work and keep what I make. I don't need the government to take care of me. Those are the people we want in. The people that want more free money, no. Go home, stay there, do that in your own country.
If you want to take over apartment buildings, do that in Venezuela. Don't be allowed to walk across the border and set up shop in Colorado and take over those apartment buildings. You want to do that all day long in Venezuela? Fine. Don't come to America and don't vote for a president that's going to allow that to come to America. All right, let's go back to the clip.
Joins me now. So, Andrew, I mean, you all have gone through, scoured an incredible amount of material. Tell me more about what you found.
Yeah, that's right. We found.
Okay. Before we go on, I love how they say scoured, like what they did was difficult. You can go on Twitter and type a search on Kamala's feed for wall, and it will show all the tweets. It takes you 10 minutes.
More than 50 of those tweets criticizing the border wall before she used that in her ad. And I want people to take a look at just a few of what she said here. She called it wasteful, useless, a waste of taxpayer money, a vanity wall project, a wasteful border wall, a stupid wall.
We're never going to get through this video. Let this sink in. This is CNN, primetime CNN, going after Kamala Harris's old position on the border wall, not giving her a free pass at all.
Weird.
A medieval vanity project and an unnecessary wall. And those are really just, there were more of this, just like 10 or like 50. But there was really a lot of this was the common refrain during the campaign. You read that quote where she said it was against everything that not only she stood for, everything America stood for, but and she brought this up a lot. Take a listen to just one instance of that in 2019.
It's the president's vanity project.
His multi-billion-dollar vanity project called a wall is nothing more than a distraction from the fact that he actually hasn't focused on working people in America. He contrived a national crisis around his big distraction.
All right, so you go through all of that, you've got all the tweets, and yet all of a sudden in the ads, there's pictures of the wall, and then you went through to look at that wall. Yeah. Like, what is that specific wall that's in her campaign ads now? And you found something very interesting about this specific portion of the wall.
And I think what's also really remarkable about this is, like, I mean, you heard her talking about it there, Trump's wall in his campaign during his presidency. There was really no greater symbol of Trump's presidency than the wall, and the way that Democrats were attacking him over the wall and his restrictive immigration policies. So we looked in that ad, and if you look at it, that exact area of wall is in Sasabe, Arizona, and that is a portion of wall that was actually built by Donald Trump. It was built in an area where there was not previous wall. It was actually pretty controversial when they were building it at the time. So just to see that, and then there are other.
She's using his wall that he built to say, "Look at what I did."
And the other images of the wall, we weren't able to pinpoint, but there's telltale signs that was a Trump wall, because there's an anti-climbing plate on top that became popularized during the Trump years.
Fascinating clip.
Todd, what do you think's up with that?
So that is always my question, Jason. Whenever you watch CNN, you always have to wonder, what is the play here? CNN has zero interest in presenting the truth or exposing Kamala Harris outright. There's got to be some other agenda to this. But that's what I'm trying to figure out. This makes Kamala Harris look really bad.
Well, I have to say, I should grab my conspiracy theory hat, break it out before the Rumble thing. Here you go. And we're going to talk about polls in a minute. I think the Kamala Harris polls, like, you're seeing polls all over the place. We don't believe in polls because they just oversample Democrats. But on any of the numbers, whatever they put out, if they put out these numbers where Kamala's up by 2 or 3, folks, that means Kamala's losing in a landslide. Because the way they skew these numbers for Kamala, they did the same thing with Joe Biden, where, like, oh, he's up 12 points in Pennsylvania, and they have to steal it in the middle of the night. And so I think CNN is kind of allegedly shenanigans happen in Pennsylvania. But for CNN, I think they're hedging their bets, going, this could go really bad for Kamala. So we got to get ahead, because imagine people who are, like, just watching, like, Morning Joe, which we got some Morning Joe on here later. Imagine what their brain went through when Morning Joe, who said, you know, Joe Biden's great, they saw the debate and they're like, oh, he's not even close to great. Like, he's terrible. So their brains are breaking, and I think CNN's trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah, you and I think, both committed, was it last week, where Kamala's going to get to the finish line? You even suggested she's going to get in the White House before the election, you know, push Joe out, see if they can get a little, oh, we already have a black woman bump in the polls. They might be hedging their bet, like, okay, we can't lie to them all the time. They might be hedging their bet, saying there might be some sort of shenanigans that go on and she's not on the ballot come November. Maybe just a little bit, but not a good look when the media turns on you this much.
Yeah. And Gloria coming in with the obvious question, what are her policies? We're going to talk about some of the Democrats' policies in the second half hour.
It's interesting. Half of Kamala's policies are right from Trump's website, and the other half are just straight from Stalin's playbook. So, yeah, the Kamala Harris that you're getting, it's kind of the two-faced version of a politician in the extreme. Is it a Donald Trump policy, or is it a just straight-up communist policy? It's one or the other.
Right, yeah, there's not a lot in between. There's like, oh, Trump's doing good with no tax on tips. Let's do that. You know,
it turns out people don't like open immigration and open borders. Hey, I'm going to take credit for that wall that Trump built. Right. But at the same time, I don't want you to have private insurance, and I want to tax unrealized gains, and I want to be very neighborly, in the words of Tim Walz, her running mate, when it comes to just stealing your income and redistributing that.
Right.
All right. CNN wasn't done, Jason. They allowed Vivek to come on the show, and this is just a fantastic 60 seconds as he puts this host and every viewer in their place.
Some claims about Kamala Harris. I want to finish that discussion. She said she didn't favor a ban on fracking now. The reality is she was one of the strongest proponents of that ban, so much so that when she was in California, she sued the Obama administration over granting fracking permits. She didn't just favor the abolition of private health insurance. She was a co-sponsor of the bill with Bernie Sanders as a U.S. Senator for Medicare for All for Americans. The reality is, when you think about the Green New Deal, she was the chief proponent, not just as a co-sponsor of the legislation, but going further and saying she would end the filibuster in the Senate to ram that through. So the reality is she can say what she wants to say now. Those are actions she has taken. Is someone allowed to evolve? Of course they are. But she deserves to explain exactly why she's changed those positions, exactly what her position is. If it's not a ban on fracking, what exactly is it? What exactly is her health care plan if she no longer favors abolishing private health insurance, which just 4 short years ago when she ran for president she did? And that's the kind of scrutiny that's been missing. I think Donald Trump has received plenty of scrutiny, and I give credit to him for sitting for hostile interviews that Kamala Harris has not. You brought up...
CNN aired that.
Yeah, CNN aired that. And, you know, half the viewers, maybe most of CNN viewers are like, oh, why is he on there? You know, how dare he say anything awful about Kamala Harris? She's Jesus Christ, 2,000 years later.
Right. Well,
it is interesting, though, Jason. You know, I am not highly intelligent. You and I yell at a camera occasionally. But boy, for someone to run just 4 years ago on certain policy positions, and as Vivek says, take actions as senator and attorney general, and now miraculously she's changed her opinion on some of the most important issues in America without any explanation, saying, I'm just going to say this now while I'm campaigning, makes you scratch your head a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, Shane on the Twitter hits it, where Jesse Waters made an excellent point when the debate happens. Trump needs to just stay away from insults and just say, what do you mean by not supporting fracking now? Why did you change? Vivek nails it in this clip. Kamala Harris took very radical positions in 2020, and historically, she voted for them as a senator. President Trump, he had said the other day in an interview he gave, my plan is to let Kamala talk. And I hope his responses are, hey, can we get to questions about why Kamala completely flipped on fracking or building the wall or any of this stuff, you know, and let's actually hold her feet to the fire. I can't wait.
That'll be a great debate. I mean, if they got rid of Joe Biden for his debate performance, we all know how Kamala is going to perform. So what next?
Well, and that's when we get to the Rumble only part. We're going to talk about some speculation for what's going to happen because, folks, we're 60 days away from an election. That's it. And if you think about that, like we've been talking about election for 2 years, 3 years now, and it just never stopped this time. But 2 months. I mean, you blink your eyes and it's going to be election day.
It feels like yesterday that we had the 2020 election. I don't know about you, Jason, but time is flying by. And it seems like we've had a campaign cycle since, you know, the following evening of that election. We always knew Donald Trump would come back. Democrats were just going Trump, Trump, Trump for the entire time. They knew what was coming in 2024 as well. So, yeah, we are just 60 days out, though, after 4 long years.
Oh, it is remarkable.
Jason, I saw this from Nate Silver. This is a fascinating poll. And again, we do not believe really any poll that gets released to the public. Trump has his internal polls. Kamala Harris has her internal polls. They see a much more accurate picture of what's going on. Polls historically have always overrepresented Democrats. They always underrepresent Republicans. But this is huge. This gives Trump a 60 to 39 edge in the electoral count. And this is worse than Joe Biden, I would think. This is worse than when Joe Biden got pushed out.
Yeah, I got to say, for those who don't know, Nate Silver tends to lean left. His polls generally run a couple points stronger for Democrats. Like he had Joe Biden winning the popular vote by a huge margin and whatnot. And I mean, it came down to 60,000 votes across the swing states that personally, I think there was some shenanigans. But if you look, so on the top left side, they're predicting Kamala Harris at a 49.9% popular vote share, Donald Trump a 48.9% popular vote share. If this number's even close, Donald Trump wins in a landslide. And if this number trends like the last few elections have, where leftist pollsters are overstating Democrats by 2 to 5%, this is a Reagan-Mondale type election. It won't be that bad. I mean, there's some states Trump won't win. He probably won't win California. He won't win New York, you know, some of those really deep blue states. But you could see, you could see Trump pulling off 30, 40 states. I mean, these are crazy numbers.
Jason, I have a fly that has been bothering me this entire podcast. I don't know if I should go the Mike Pence route and just let it land on my head and just pretend it's not there, but man, this thing just keeps buzzing in my face.
The Todd fly. We love it.
I can hear it say Trump.
All right, where do we go next, Todd?
Let's take a walk down. Well, this is neither here nor there. I thought this was just a lighter moment. This is what Donald Trump can offer. He can laugh. I'm going to just go on a random tangent here. I don't have the video clip, but Bill Maher was going after CNN's Caitlin Collins, or it was Megyn Kelly going after Caitlin Collins. She's one of the CNN hosts. I've never seen her smile, never heard her laugh. Like, a hallmark of leftism is it just makes you miserable. So I like this moment of levity. It was between Sean Hannity and Donald Trump as they go after Kamala Harris's and Tim Walz's 18-minute interview here. So we'll just play this really fast before we transition to some real news.
No way I'm going to vote for her. No, you have to have fracking. You know, you're the biggest in the country for this. You have two of the biggest sites in the world. It's a massive business for Pennsylvania. And you can't take a chance. She will not allow fracking. She's not going to, and she's got a lot of other problems too. But for your particular, for the Commonwealth, you have no choice,
if I may,
but to allow it.
16 minutes and 30 seconds are up. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Imagine that. Donald Trump was just getting started 16 minutes in, and that is the entirety of the Kamala Harris interview.
Well, and I got to say, Trump's got an interesting strategy this time. He's not doing as many rallies. Some of it they're saying is finances. Personally, I think he just doesn't want to be in a spot where people can shoot at him. But that's just my opinion. But he's doing all these long-form interviews. I've seen him on 3 different podcasts that went for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Just sitting there talking, shooting the breeze. But can you imagine CNN, the very friendly media to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, you film an hour and you can only run 17 minutes of it. I can't even.
Yeah, and Jason, just to kind of dovetail that, I like Trump's new strategy. Rallies are great. It's great for a local community to go see Trump in person. But I have always wondered, like, how much of the needle do these rallies move? Like, if I'm going to go to a rally for Donald Trump, I'm already voting for Donald Trump. And people outside of that rally aren't really getting the message, but they watch cable television. A lot of folks have given up cable. They go over to podcasts now. So for Donald Trump to appear on a lot of these podcasts, he's reaching a brand new audience. And look, a lot of young men are tuned into podcasts, and he's making appearances on the shows and the programs that they listen to. So I like that strategy a lot. Neither here nor there, but I think this is the right move for Trump. Yes, do the rallies, get in front of the camera a little bit, but just get your voice out there, get your ideas out there. And I think it's working well for Trump. I don't think you can say he's polling well, and it's not a result, in a little bit at least, from those podcasts and these interview formats.
You know, the other thing I'm going to say about the Trump campaign, that, you know, sometimes it's the dog not barking that sticks out, where when you see something not happening, if you remember his last 2 election cycles, there were leaks upon leaks upon leaks. Every day there was a new story about some behind the scenes drama. And let's be honest, we know there's plenty of behind the scenes drama. These are high risk. There's billions of dollars in these campaigns. People running these campaigns have like a lot invested in it. One of my concerns for second Trump presidency was he going to hire better? And he's talked about it openly, like, yeah, I hired a lot of bad ones, hired a lot of good ones too. But now I know the players better, so now I know who not to pick. And I think one thing evidenced by that is we're like 2 years into his campaign, 3 years, whatever you want to call it, down to the last 60 days. And we haven't seen leaks at all. In fact, I saw a Biden-Harris campaign thing where they said, Donald Trump, there must be something big coming down the pike because they sent an email out to remind people not to leak or not to talk to the media. And I'm like, no, I bet they get those emails all the time. Because if you're going to be part of the Trump campaign, you better have we don't want you talking to CNN. We don't want you talking to MSNBC. We don't want any of that nonsense. So shout out to President Trump and his team.
Yeah, and one of the things this kind of segues perfectly into our next video, Jason. One of the things that we've been talking about is I think Donald Trump needs to name people that will be involved in his administration instead of waiting to win the election, let's say, get inaugurated, and then present his cabinet staff. I think to win a lot of voters over, he's going to need to say, look, you all liked Vivek. Here's Vivek's role in my administration. Elon Musk, very popular on Twitter right now. He's allowed freedom of speech to reign. Elon Musk is going to have a role in my administration. And this is going to get a lot of people excited because for what, we all know the reasons. People, Donald Trump, they said this about Trump, and I still believe it for whatever reason. But if you can surround Donald Trump with a lot of the figures that we like and respect and admire, RFK has now endorsed him, that can also change people's voting. Again, it shouldn't, but it does because people have been brainwashed for 10 years now about Donald Trump. But take a listen to this clip as Trump promises a role for Elon Musk in his administration to go after government inefficiencies.
Fourth, at the suggestion of Elon Musk, who has given me his complete and total endorsement. That's nice, 'cause he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. It's very, very much appreciated. I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now. And Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force. Be interesting. If he has the time, it'll be a good one to do it. But he's agreed to do it. In 2022, fraud and improper...
Can't say the F word.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know the number, Jason. I don't know if it's 75 or 90%. I see a lot of different numbers. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, he cleaned house. And Jason, you use the app a lot. Have you noticed anything? Has his performance gotten worse? Has the app improved?
I gotta say, Twitter, people don't give it credit for how much that's just changed society. Elon Musk bought it out, and he actually gave people freedom of speech on there. And I used to go on there, and it was a leftist hellhole of just these awful, and it's like, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. But all these people believe in it, and they would amplify accounts if you had dissenting opinions. And Elon, since he bought it, like, he's let things go and he's leaned into community notes. But yeah, one of the most pivotal things he did was he fired a bunch of people. And if you look at our federal government, how big the bureaucracy is, it's amazing the waste. If you know anybody that works for the federal government, and I'm not saying there's not good federal government employees, but there's just waste. And if you think of it, it's because what's the incentive structure for a government worker? To spend all their money in their budget. Because how's next year's budget determined? By what you spent last year. So you get last year's money plus 5% or plus 10%. If you don't spend all your money, Todd, what happens to your budget next year?
Your budget shrinks. And you don't want to have less money next year. So if you get allotted $10,000, you're going to spend $10,000 whether you need to or not.
Yeah, there's no measurement of results. There's no measurement of like what they get done. It's just a bureaucracy. There's no profit motive, which is that motive to make things more efficient or do things better. But yeah, it's funny. So Colin Rugg was somebody at my old business. I still talk to Colin every now and again. And he was a writer for us, and he had gotten off Twitter. And I remember he had 2,000 followers. And if you look at his account now, he's got like 2 million. That November when Elon bought it, I'm like, dude, you need to get back on Twitter. Like, Elon just bought it. We're starting to share stuff because his Twitter account had been nuked. And like it's good. And I remember one of his first tweets was, wow, I'm back on Twitter and Elon laid off 70% of the staff and it runs better than ever. And that was his pin tweet for like a year. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, but if you don't think, you got all these Dem voters out there saying, oh, we need every single person in government because they help government run more efficiently. Nothing could be further from the truth. Jason, I bet you could fire half of the government staff tomorrow. Nothing would change.
Right. And actually, shout out Fally. So Fally brings up, I'm still on the fence about Elon. He's in the mind control crap. Here's what I'm going to say when we look at all the people that Trump's bringing on, because he's bringing in RFK, he's bringing in Vivek, he's bringing in Elon. I think the thing that we have to understand is that we need to trust Donald Trump to compartmentalize these people. I don't know if I want Elon Musk with his tentacles in all of government. When it comes to government efficiency, I love Elon Musk doing that. when you talk about RFK Jr., there are a million things I don't want RFK Jr. to get his hands on. I don't want his hands on gun control. I don't want his hands on a number of things, budgets, spending, any of that. I think the food in America, we're being poisoned by these big corporations. And if you put RFK Jr. and say, you're going to clean up our food, you're going to work on cleaning up pharmaceuticals. Oh, and by the way, you're going to release the assassination files. Like, those are all things I can support. But I think that's where we'll have to readjust our thinking and say, we're going to get people like Tulsi Gabbard. Like, I agree with maybe 50, 60% of where Tulsi stands. There's 40% of the stuff I vehemently disagree with. But if you put Tulsi in a role, something involving the military, I could totally be down with that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comment, Fally. And I noticed that you're on Facebook and not Rumble, Fally. So please hop over when we conclude our hour mark here, and we'll continue for another half hour. I want to go to Paul's comment. This is where I'm with Paul. I think Elon is good for America. Right now, he is doing tremendous work. If you're not following Elon on Twitter, calling out the race Marxists every single day, pointing out the destructive left for what they are. There are a lot of things with Elon Musk that I have zero interest in. I don't need a Neuralink chip implanted into my brain. That will never happen. But when it comes to calling out the regime and the establishment and the totalitarian left, Elon Musk is leading the charge. And he has said, I never wanted to get involved in politics, but we're kind of a life or death situation in America. If Kamala Harris wins, if Democrats continue to gain more power, get the Senate, get the House, the things they will push through, it is a frightening thing to consider. And so right now, at this point in time, don't have to trust Elon Musk, don't even have to like Elon Musk, but what Musk is saying and the actions I believe he'll take in terms of limiting the size of the government, I don't see an alternative, Jason. It's Trump or Kamala Harris in this election. Neither is perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, but I will definitely side on Trump and Elon every single time against Kamala Harris.
Right. Well, and there we go. Fally's back on.
God love Fally.
God love Fally. And Todd, explain to people why we like Rumble, why we do Rumble.
Well, as we even said, naming the title of this podcast today, we have to censor our words. We can't say the 5-letter F word when it comes to elections. There's things on social media, Facebook in particular, we stream on YouTube as well. If we say certain things or go down certain paths and talk about certain subjects, Jason, we run like 15 Facebook pages. We have some very large presence on social media. We would get those pages instantly nuked. That means millions of followers would lose access to us. We would lose tens of thousands of dollars in investments that we have put into building up our brand. In a blink of an eye, our livelihoods, the very work we do, could be cut off. I don't think people appreciate that enough. What we do every single day, we have to tiptoe around subjects on Facebook. We have to be careful with every single word that we use on Facebook, lest we want to get those pages obliterated and lose access to how we monetize and how we provide for our families.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, we do a news site, we run a Substack, we have some video channels. We try to combat the media narrative and just report facts, say, here's the thing, here's the clip, here's the copy, the reporting. We offer our insights on it. But it's interesting because on some of these platforms, they just aren't. Like case in point in Georgia. The historically mail-in ballots were kicked out at a 7% rate. In the 2020 election, they were kicked out at a 1% rate, even though the number of mail-in ballots went way up. One would think that you should have an explanation for why that was. But if you ask too many of those sorts of questions, congratulations.
And Jason, I love this story. Nothing better exemplifies what we are up against. We would post videos of Joe Biden from C-SPAN. This was pre-debate, so this is when the narrative was different. A video of Joe Biden on C-SPAN walking down a sidewalk, and we would just say, look at Joe Biden. We would get censored on Facebook. We would get fact checks saying, no, Joe Biden was walking just fine if we said, boy, something's off with his gait. The debate happens, and suddenly we can post that video again, but the control is so tight on what we can do. We can't even put public access videos up there without threat of demonetization.
Oh, yeah, it is crazy. Hey, and shout out, my wife just texted me, said my audio was off. I think I had the wrong microphone on. So you'll have to let me know if this sounds better in the audience.
Yeah, I heard that as well, Jason. I didn't want to call you out, but since the wife said it, now I'm going to say it too.
Yeah, no, tell me. What happens is sometimes there's like 3 or 4 microphones hooked up, depending on what I'm running. And when I relaunch the software, it doesn't always default. Does it sound better now, Todd?
It sounds crisper now. Yeah, you were a little fuzzy before.
All right, giddy up.
All right, when you're live.
Yeah, when you're live, what are you going to do? We got to get in the second half, though, to what we're facing if Democrats win. And we've got 3 great videos we got to go through here.
Absolutely.
What should the first one be, Todd?
Can I just ask a question? Do you mean we're not going to get a border wall if Kamala wins and we're not going to continue fracking? Is she just saying that? We're not going to get that?
I might. All right, Todd. I'm going to tinfoil hat. I might be a conspiracy theorist, but I think Kamala's lying to you. I think Kamala really wants to stop doing all these things. Oh, there, I had to get the fresh part. But Todd, can we play the Schumer clip first?
Yeah, and you know what? I actually believe Chuck Schumer. I don't think he's lying here.
So just to frame up this clip, I have the tinfoil hat on. I am a conspiracy theorist. I believe that they're importing third world people from poor countries. They're poor countries because they ran them terribly. People wanted to escape there. Democrats brought them in with the promise, thinking they would become permanent voters for them. That's why they brought them in. And I was told I was a conspiracy theorist, and I was told that it was the Great Replacement theory was not true. I was told all these things, Todd.
I remember hearing that too.
Maybe we should check in with Chuck Schumer.
Let's see what Chuck says nowadays.
The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Or however many there are. Nobody has any idea. They honestly don't care. The more, the merrier. Jason, it sounds like he needs to replace us because there's not enough of us. I don't know.
I was told that if I said this on my Facebook page a year ago, they would nuke my page because the Great Replacement theory, it was a thing or whatever. Chuck Schumer on a press conference surrounded by people flat out says, we want to make however many people are here American citizens. Not we want to verify that they want to live by our cultural norms. Not, hey, we want to make sure they should be in America. Just, hey, here's the thing. And if you think about it, folks, this is a great move by the Democrats. Terrible for America. But you go to the third world, you say, come to our country. We're going to give you free stuff. We're going to let you in. We're going to put you up in hotels. We're going to let you do whatever you did in your previous country. All you got to do is vote for us. If you vote for the other guys, they're going to send you home. And in the short term, all these blue states that welcomed all these illegals get additional representation in the House of Representatives, additional electoral votes. So they're impacting the election that way. But ultimately, if they just get to blanket say, okay, you're all American citizens now, do you think those guys are going to vote for the people promising them free stuff or the people that are going to make them go to work? Truly.
I feel like we have to say this every single time we have a clip now. Any one of these video clips should be disqualifying. If you had any inclination to vote for Kamala Harris, this is reason alone to not. You are literally getting replaced. Do they care? You just ask yourself, do you think they care about you, the white suburban mom who's still turned off by Donald Trump's private, leaked recording from years ago? By the way, Kamala was also the side piece, so I don't even know how you're outraged about Trump, but not about Kamala. This alone, they do not care about you. Come on board, however many millions of illegal immigrants they are. You're the next group that we're going to prioritize. White suburban mom, you are so far down on the list, you have no idea. This should be reason alone. But it doesn't stop there, Jason. There are more promises coming out of the Democrats right now.
Let's travel
Put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility.
Okay, I'm just going to pause it right there. When she says platforms, plural, we already said what happens on Facebook. She's not talking about Facebook. Jason, she is talking about the platforms that we exclusively stream on in our extra half hour. Twitter, well, especially Twitter and mostly Twitter, but you can imagine Rumble will get lumped in as well. Anywhere that there is free speech, Kamala says that is misinformation, full of misinformation and hate, and we're going to shut it down.
Think of that. And she's saying the Department of Justice is going to do that. I'm just, you know what, Todd? You might need to go back, though, and we might need to start it from the beginning.
Fire up.
Put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice.
Now, here's what I wanted everybody to pay attention to. How hammered does Kamala Harris look?
That's always the question.
Well, let's go back and watch that. And like, for those who are in the audience who've ever had one too many beers and you've been sitting at the bar ranting about the government, just watch her and look at it through the lens of, is she hammered?
Yeah. How many has she had?
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice.
I got to say, too, this is Kamala speaking in circles. Justice Department back in the business of justice. Everything she says is meaningless. Yeah, let's put them back in the business of justice. And Jason, to be clear, justice doesn't mean to them what it means to us. What does justice mean to you? It means fairness. It means equality under the law. Justice to these Marxists means if you're a white, straight Christian male, need not apply. If you go pray somewhere, you're going to get thrown in jail. And if you are not one of those, if you don't check those boxes, then you can burn down cities and get bailed out by someone. I will donate money to the bail funds to get you out of jail. That is justice.
Yeah.
By the way, if you vote for Donald Trump and question the election, we'll throw you in jail too, probably.
Right.
We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
This is perhaps one of the scariest things you could listen to a presidential nominee candidate say.
I'm going to weaponize. And folks, if we just got on this podcast and said Kamala Harris is threatening this, people would call us liars. How many times, if you're online and you say something, you get leftists going, proof, where's your proof? Oh my God, you crazy conspiracy theorist. So that's why we got to preface it with the actual video of drunk Kamala Harris. Now, I will say, if they want to say, you know what, Kamala was tanked. She didn't really mean some of that stuff she was saying. But here is the presidential candidate saying she's going to sick the Department of Justice on people that spread misinformation and disinformation or hateful rhetoric. So if I say trans women are men because they are biological males, that could be defined as hate speech. In some countries it is, and they could come after me. If I say whatever speculation, I mean, during the pandemic, there was all sorts of speculation. There was a time where if you said ivermectin was bad, you would get dinged for misinformation and your pages would get shut down. Now it's medically proven that ivermectin turns out worked pretty good in some cases. Not that we give medical advice on this show, but all this stuff that's been, if we would have said that the Democrats' plan is to import all these people and make them citizens so that they'll continue to vote for Democrats, they would have said it's misinformation. We just played the Chuck Schumer clip 6 months ago. That would be called misinformation. Now it's a proven fact.
Jason, if you are a politician like Kamala Harris or her running mate Tim Walz, who's promoting the latest hoax, J.D. Vance saying that it's a fact of life that people get shot at schools, as if he was downplaying what happened in Georgia. When you're Kamala Harris, you can lie every single day in your campaign. I'm going to build a wall. I believe in border walls. Is she getting fact-checked? Is she getting accused of spreading misinformation? No, but if you, the conservative American, question anything about the government's role in your day-to-day life, only that is misinformation. The double standard here is it's beyond the pale. Kamala Harris will lie to you every single day. She must know she's lying, but that is never misinformation. That's politicians say things that, they break promises. But you and I tiptoe every single day on social media lest we get caught up in this whirlwind of leftist fact-checking.
Right. It's truly true. We're all fired up. Todd and I say, we always have a plan. We go into these podcasts. We end up getting pissed off when we're watching these clips. I'm like, I just want to shake my finger. Should we hit that last clip before?
Yeah, I just got to emphasize this point. Kamala Harris is running on her only policy is that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. In my lifetime, going after the First Amendment so blatantly and getting celebrated for it is the largest threat to democracy that we have ever encountered. End of story. And there are Democrat voters out there that still think Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. They can't even define democracy. Kamala Harris is willing to strip you of your First Amendment right. She's talked about going after your Second Amendment right. I don't know where she'll stop on the Constitution. But yeah, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy.
Yeah. All right. We got... Todd, I feel like I'm going to wear out the tinfoil hat, continuing
You're
to
going to
break
rub
it
the rest
out.
of your hair off, Jason.
Yeah. Well, and there's not as much hair as there used to be, so tinfoil hat kind of helps. So for years, we heard that the Green New Deal, they were going to try to get us off oil and gas, which would have catastrophic results. Folks, the world runs on energy. Cheap energy is part of what keeps America going. Donald Trump, we talked about fracking, all that. Well, the left wants to put in these Green New Deal policies. They want to make you drive an electric car. Eventually, they're going to make you eat bugs. Like we've been talking about all this stuff. But when they passed the Inflation Reduction Act, Todd and I went through it, looked what was in it. It was all this environmental stuff. It was giving money to windmill farms and to electric car companies. Oh, and by the way, those people were big Democratic voters. They were hiring Democrats to go speak at their conventions, which is why the politicians are supporting it. It was a whole scheme. We all broke it apart. But Todd, I have the tinfoil hat on because they said, if you call that the Green New Deal, you are a conspiracy theorist.
You don't say. Are you telling me they told us one thing and it's actually something else? I just listened to Kamala Harris talk about combating misinformation. This can't be real.
I don't know. I mean, I guess he is kind of mentally deficient, but we should probably hear what Joe Biden has to say. And this was, a day ago?
Not that long ago.
On the campaign trail with Kamala.
Through my investments, the most significant climate change law ever. And by the way, it is a $369 billion bill. It's called the... we should have named it what it was, but at any rate, the Department of Agriculture is able, from that legislation, to announce $7.3 billion.
Oh, so we were right calling the Inflation Reduction Act the new Green New Deal.
Right. So this wasn't designed to reduce inflation. This was designed to restructure America in ways with energy production, with all that. Joe Biden just said it. And if you remember when they were debating the Inflation Reduction Act, and we broke down, we wrote articles, we did videos on it, where we're like, that's not what's this is going to do. This is just shoveling a bunch of money to all these, environmental things that are going to have no ROI. We told all that. They fact checked us. They said, that we'd have to be so careful. Oh, this is just our opinion. Anybody who read the bill could have seen that. Like, this was not rocket science. Joe Biden just admits it. And how come this isn't the leading news story? Like, hey, Joe Biden comes clean. The Inflation Reduction Act was really just a version of the Green New Deal.
Side note, are they making him grow out his hair or what's left of it just to make him look even older and more evil?
I don't know.
I saw a clip that Joe Biden's poll numbers are actually getting better since he announced since he's not running for president anymore. And I think it was on CNN or MSNBC or KJP. Somebody got asked that question, like, How does Joe Biden feel now that his polling numbers are higher since people know he's leaving? And I think it was KGP, and she just had zero response for it.
Oh my gosh.
Peter Ducey trolling her.
So let's see, in the second half hour of our show, we didn't have to do deep dives like CNN. We just debunked 3 conspiracy theories we've been saying for a while now. They've been saying on the right. It's not like we just said it. And they've been calling us all crazy. They've been calling you crazy for thinking it. And now we just have 3 prime examples that have just come out of Democrat politicians saying, oh, you're right. Just kidding. Chuck Schumer's out there. Oh, you're right. We really want all these people to be citizens. Joe Biden's like, oh, you're right. It was really environmental law. It wasn't about inflation. Gosh, guys, you got me. And
Jason, we talk about sharing this episode. It helps us when more people get views, but we encourage you to share these clips in this podcast with your friends or your neighbors or family members that have voted Democrat in the past, have said how much they hate Donald Trump and how he's so divisive for America and lies all the time. And they'll probably vote for Kamala Harris because they feel like a better person voting for the black woman. Share this episode with those people. Have them watch these 3 clips of you getting lied to your face, or just the policy positions they hold. And then just ask them, say, like, what has Donald Trump said that competes at that level of either lying or threat to our, and as Fally pointed out here, we are not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. What has Donald Trump said that a lie at that level, or a policy position that you think is so awful and a threat to democracy in and of itself? And wait for their response. Jason, we're running out of words to describe these people, but they'll tell you Donald Trump lies. He's a threat to America. Folks, this whole episode has been what they are promising to do. We have exposed them for the lies that they told. I'm not being partisan. I'm being objective. There is no way Donald Trump is any of that. I mean, we knew that going in, but ask your leftist friend to clarify. Like, get inside their brain a little bit.
Well, and here's what's funny, too. So I don't know how you can vote for these guys. And it's interesting because we can expose all these lies. One of my good friends, Jim, we get together every couple weeks for lunch. We've known each other 20 years. I've helped do his taxes. Like, we're good friends. And I'm like, okay, they switched out Joe. They lied about this. They lied about that. And he's like, oh, I'm still voting for Kamala. And I'm like, how on earth, how many things do we need to show you how corrupt these people are? Like, even just don't vote. You know what I mean? Like, how can you in good conscience mark the check on the box to vote for these liars? And another friend of mine from England, it was funny, and I tell this story all the time, but he's like, the most remarkable thing in America is that politicians or the media comes back and says, oh yeah, it turns out we've been lying to you for 10 years. We're going to tell you the truth now. And y'all just believe it. You don't like grab the pitchforks and the torches and go rioting on them. You just roll along with it.
Yeah. At what point does a Democrat voter finally say, wait a second, CNN is not telling me the truth about this, because I just watched Donald Trump say that I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis. They're not fine people. Okay, they lied to me about Charlottesville. Honestly, at what point do they just say, okay, that's not true. I'm now going to question what else is not true. And Jason, I'm black-pilled on this. If you got out of the pandemic and you never questioned, like, boy, they said a lot of things over the course of those few years. None of it was true. And you still believe Democrats and you still believe the media. Like, honestly, I have zero hope for those people.
We started
black-pilled.
We started the episode, and I say, I need the audience's help. Let us know what word we can use other than retard. But if after all the lies that the media spread, and the Democrats especially, and the lockdowns and the big wealth transfer to corporations, not holding big pharma accountable for any tests, if you still buy this, folks, you're retarded. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, Todd's wife. She really doesn't like it.
Great. Now I have to have another conversation when the camera turns off.
She's going to be waiting out there. Todd, you let him say the R word like 3 times.
Challenge. Folks, if you're watching the show, comment on Rumble, comment on Facebook, comment on Twitter. Look up the thesaurus. Let us know what is a stronger word to describe a Democrat voter. Like, Jason, I'm out of patience. You and I were talking before the show aired, too. Like, if you're on our Rumble channel, the American Tribune, you can watch. I do videos every day, commentary on kind of what's going on in the world. I start off, if you go back to the initial library, I start off really pleasant. I'm just like, man, this happened. This is kind of silly. if you watch today's clips, I am just like, what the hell is going on? What is wrong with you? Like, my tone is different. My language is different. My approach is different. I'm out of words to describe you. I've lost all patience. If you're voting for Democrats at this point, something is wrong with you. There's just something wrong with you, and I don't know how else to describe it.
On that note, we should probably wind down Facebook, YouTube, those platforms. We have the last half hour. We want to go through some stuff to prepare our audience for, things to keep in mind as we gear up to the election. We mentioned earlier 60 days. We've already seen an attempt on President Trump's life. Like, all bets are off. We've seen them trying to lock him up. I think they're going to lock him up in a couple weeks in New York. But we want to talk about some of that stuff. We'd love to have you jump over to Rumble. Like Todd mentioned, our channel name is The American Tribune. That's the name of our websites and our Substacks. And join the crowd over there. We got like 40, 50 people watching live, which is awesome for a couple knuckleheads from Minnesota. So we'll hop over there, take a quick 60-second break, and then we'll see you on Rumble.